Elena Marsh stepped between me and the office door at 6:47 on a Tuesday night, put her arm across the frame, and whispered two words I'd have bet my career she was incapable of saying to me. I lied. I laughed. I actually laughed. The short, ugly laugh you save for the coworker who has spent 3 years making your professional life a contact sport. Okay, I said, reaching past her for the handle. Good talk, Marsh. Her hand closed on my wrist. Not hard. Cold. Her eyes went over my shoulder, down the dark floor of cubicles, toward the one office at the far end where a light had just come on. Gordon Hale's office, our senior VP, who was supposed to be in Denver, and when she looked back at me, her face held something I had never seen on it in 3 years of open warfare. Fear. For me. Not here, she breathed, and killed the exit row lights with her elbow, and pulled me, the man she once called a rounding error with a lanyard, in front of the entire ops team, into the copy room, into the dark, 2 inches apart between the toner shelves, while Gordon Hale's footsteps came down the aisle we'd just been standing in. Let me give you the 3-sentence version of us, because that's all the time she gave me. I'm Owen. Elena Marsh and I started at Corvent Logistics the same month 6 years ago, and for the first 3 we were friendly, and for the last 3 she has been the documented, relentless, borderline artistic reason I lost a promotion, 2 accounts, and most of my faith in people, cold emails, credit taken, my name mysteriously off the Meridian project the week before it made everyone on it look brilliant. HR has a folder. My mother knows her name. That's who had me pinned in a copy room with her hand flat against my chest, listening to our VP's footsteps stop outside the door. The handle turned, the door opened 4 inches. A wedge of hallway light cut the dark between us, and stopped an inch from my shoe. And then Hale's phone rang and he said, yeah, still at the office, cleaning up the, no, it's handled. Friday, 9 a.m., it's all teed up, he'll never see it coming, and the door clicked shut, and his footsteps faded toward the elevators, and Elena Marsh let out a breath against my collarbone that she'd been holding for what I'd later learn was a great deal longer than one phone call. Who'll never see what coming, I whispered. She looked up at me in the dark and said the second worst sentence of the night. You. Parking garage, level 3, 20 minutes. Take the stairs. Your badge. She hesitated, and I felt the hesitation land like weather changing. Don't use your badge tonight. Level 3 of the parking garage, 7:10 p.m. Fluorescent hum and cold concrete, and Elena pulled a plain manila folder out of her bag and held it against her chest for 1 second like it weighed something, and then handed it to me. Before you open that, she said, I need you to know I've been ordered to have it finished by Thursday night, and I need you to know I'm not going to. I opened it under the parking lights. The first page was a termination memo. My name in the subject line. Termination for cause, O. Calloway. Effective Friday. The second page was worse. An internal fraud referral, drafted for outside counsel, describing a multi-year vendor overbilling scheme perpetrated by the employee, with a dollar figure that made the concrete tilt under me. $2.3 million. Paid out over 4 years to a fulfillment vendor called TriPoint that I had never, I want this on the record the way I said it out loud in that garage, that I had never once worked with. And then the exhibits, purchase approvals, vendor authorizations, wire confirmations, dozens of them, spread across 4 years, every single one carrying, in the approver field, in handwriting that made my stomach drop because it was good, because it would fool my own mother, my signature. Signatures I never signed, approving invoices I'd never seen, to a vendor I'd never met, for $2.3 million I'd obviously never touched. A complete, professional 4-year paper trail proving beyond reasonable doubt that Owen Calloway was a thief. This is fake, I said. My voice came out wrong. Elena, all of this is, I know. You know? I know, she said quietly, because I've spent 2 years learning that scheme from the inside, and I know exactly whose money it really is, and I know why every one of those signatures says your name. She took 1 step closer under the fluorescent light, and the woman who had spent 3 years dismantling me looked me dead in the eye and finished it. They're not firing you Friday, Owen. They're feeding you to it. 9 a.m., conference room A. There'll be outside counsel in the room and a police referral in a folder, and by 10 you won't be an ex-employee. You'll be a suspect with a 4-year evidence trail and a frozen severance. That meeting isn't a review. Her voice dropped to the register she'd used against the exit door. It's a plank. And I'm the one who was ordered to build it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. We both flinched. A calendar invitation, arriving at 7:14 p.m., like a punchline with a timestamp. Q3 compliance review, Friday 9 a.m., Conf. Room A, Organizer G. Hale, attendance mandatory, 62 hours. That's what I had. 62 hours until the plank, standing in a parking garage holding the murder weapon with my own name forged on it, and the only person on earth offering to help me was the one person with a 3-year documented history of wanting me destroyed. Why would I trust you, I said, over anyone alive? Elena Marsh looked at me for a long moment under the buzzing lights. And then she said the thing that broke the whole world open, the thing this entire story is actually about. Because hating you, she said, is the only thing I've ever lied about, and I've been lying about it for 3 years, on purpose, to keep you off that plank. Get in the car, Owen. I'll show you what my hate has been protecting you from. She drove us to a diner 2 towns over. No Corvant people, no cameras pointed at the register. I checked 2 years ago, which is a sentence that tells you everything about the woman I thought I knew. And over untouched coffee, in a back booth, Elena Marsh took 3 years of my life apart and rebuilt them in front of me. 3 years ago, she said, you flagged an invoice. I stared at her. I've flagged 100 invoices. October. Your 2nd year. A TriPoint invoice crossed your desk by mistake. Wrong cost center. You emailed accounts payable 1 line. Who is TriPoint and why are we paying rush fees on standard freight? 1 line, Owen. She turned her coffee cup a quarter turn, a tell I'd cataloged years ago across conference tables and never once understood. 11 minutes later, Gordon Hale called me into his office. He'd been CC'd by his person in AP, and he gave me a special assignment. Her jaw set. He said you were a culture problem, said you needed managed friction. He wanted you contained, kept junior, kept off vendor accounts, kept too busy fighting to ever look at another invoice. And he picked me to do it. Because we were friends, and friends make the best cages. The diner went very quiet around me. The promotion? I said slowly. Meridian. The email chains. 3 years, Elena. I said yes, she said, and she made herself hold my eyes while she said it, which I will always respect and never forget. That's the part you get to hate me for, so aim it well. At first, I said yes to save my own career, because Gordon Hale ends people who tell him no, and I told myself office politics never killed anyone. Quarter turn of the cup. It took me 8 months to figure out why you actually needed managing. Why 1 line about 1 invoice rated a 3-year containment order? I pulled the TriPoint file on a Sunday when I had building access, and Hale didn't know, and once I saw what it was, once I understood what you'd brushed against without knowing it, I couldn't stop the war, Owen. Because the war was the only thing keeping you harmless to him. The day you stopped being blocked by me was the day he'd need you handled by something worse. She pulled out her phone, opened a photo, slid it across the table. A corporate filing, TriPoint Fulfillment LLC. Registered agent, member managed, and there in the member line, a name I didn't know, Hale's brother-in-law, she said, and an address I did know, because the entire company had been to a 4th of July party there. Gordon Hale's lake house. TriPoint is Gordon, she said. It has no trucks, no warehouse, no employees. It's a mailbox and a bank account. For 4 years, Corvin has paid it $2.3 million for freight services that other vendors actually performed, and every payment is approved with a forged signature. First a dead cost center, then a retiree's login, and for the last 4 years, she nodded at the folder between us. You. He didn't frame you this week, Owen. He's been building you this whole time. You were never a coworker to him. You were a fire exit. I sat with that. My coffee had gone cold and I drank it anyway, because my hands needed a job. 3 years of losing to this woman. 3 years of rehearsing speeches about her in my car. And underneath every defeat, invisible, this, a containment field, held in place by the only person at Corvant who'd figured out the truth and decided, coldly, daily, at the cost of being hated by me, that my hating her was a survivable condition. And my knowing wasn't. You could have told me, I said. The first month, you'd have marched into Hale's office with a printout, because that's who you are, and it's Tuesday, so you'd currently be 4 years into being unemployable. She said it without cruelty, like a doctor reading a chart. The first year? I had a folder of suspicions and no proof, against an SVP with the general counsel's ear. I needed the pattern, and patterns take. My phone lit up on the table between us. We both looked down. IT security ops. Your device has been remotely enrolled in legal hold. Some functions are now restricted. And then, while we watched, my email icon grayed out. My drive access, revoked. My badge status, when Elena checked it through her admin view with a face going paler by the second. Level 1, lobby only, effective 8 o'clock p.m. He's sealing you off early, she said quietly. That's not procedure. Procedure is Friday, all at once in the room. She looked up, and for the second time that night I watched fear cross her face. And this time I understood it was not for me. Owen, legal hold on your device means someone requested preservation tonight. And the only reason to move tonight. Her own phone buzzed against the table. Face down. She turned it over. Gordon Hale. Status on the Callaway file? Want it camera ready by Thursday COB. Also, badge logs show you in the building late tonight. Burning midnight oil? Then, 3 seconds later, a second bubble, and I watched the woman who had outgeneraled me for 3 years read it and go absolutely still. Hope it was productive. Gee. The containment field had a crack in it, and the man who built ovens for a living had just told the baker, in the mildest possible language, that he could smell smoke too. There's someone you need to meet, Elena said in the diner parking lot. Tonight, while your face still works as a surprise, and 40 minutes later, we were on the sagging porch of a duplex on the east side, and the man who opened the door took one look at me and tried to close it again. No, he said through the gap, whatever chapter this is, I'm not in it. Marcus, Elena said. He's the next one. The door stopped, opened, and I stood face to face with a ghost I hadn't thought about in 2 years. Marcus Webb, senior procurement, fired in disgrace the spring before my war with Elena started. The all-staff email had called it a violation of financial controls. The rumor mill had called it embezzlement. He'd had a kid in middle school and a retirement party already half planned. And then one Friday he was a cardboard box and a security escort. And we all, I'm ashamed of this, we all just absorbed it and went to lunch. His living room was neat and small and full of a lawyer's worth of banker's boxes. He'd kept everything. Of course he had. The ones who get fed to it always keep everything. It's the only thing they're allowed to carry out. 4 years at Corvent they said I stole, Marcus told me. Not sitting, arms crossed, telling it like a man who'd told it to 100 people who didn't believe him. Signatures that looked like mine on tri-point approvals. A compliance review on a Friday at 9 a.m. They like Fridays. Gives the story a weekend to set before anyone hears your side. Outside counsel in the room, a separation agreement sliding across the table. Sign here, waive everything, keep silent, and we won't refer it to the police. He smiled with no humor at all. I didn't sign. I fought. You want to know what fighting cost? Ask my house. Ask my marriage. Legal fees ate the first, the story ate the second, and every job I've interviewed for in 2 years, somebody makes a phone call, and Gordon Hale picks up on the other end sounding so regretful, so discreet. He looked at Elena. Show him. She pulled a page from her bag. A tri-point approval, 4.5 years old, signed by Marcus Webb. And beside it, a page from my folder, signed by me last spring. Same pen pressure. Same strange little hitch on the terminal letters. Same hand. Same forger, Elena said. He didn't stop the scheme when Marcus went down. He just changed the name on the fire exit. You replaced Marcus, Owen. Friday, someone replaces you. And that, standing in a ruined man's living room, looking at my future in a banker's box, is when the evening found a way to get worse. Because Marcus said the thing that detonated our whole plan before we'd made one. You're going to want to email somebody. Compliance hotline, the board, a journalist. Don't. He tapped one of the boxes. I emailed the audit committee the night before my Friday. Anonymous account, public library, careful as church. They still knew. Counsel had my email printed in the folder at my meeting, my anonymous email, and Hale never even looked surprised. Marcus leaned in. The IT director fishes for him, son. Sable, 3rd floor, golfs with Hale every other Sunday. Nothing electronic inside that building is yours. Your email, your chat, that hold they put on your laptop tonight, you're not preserved, you're bugged. Whatever you two are going to do, you do it on paper, in person, off campus. You're analog now, welcome to it. I looked at Elena. Elena looked at a point on the wall, doing math I couldn't see, and when she came back she said quietly, that's how he knew about my badge tonight, before I'd done anything. He's not suspicious of me since this evening. He's been reading me. I don't know for how long. A breath. which means everything I've gathered on my work accounts, he may know exists. Which means, Marcus finished, gently, for both of us, whatever you're holding, you get it somewhere with subpoena power before Friday, 9 a.m. Because the moment that meeting starts, every question becomes, why did the thief and his accomplice steal documents? And I promise you, the truth does not out. The truth gets outspent. We drove back in silence most of the way. Somewhere on the highway, Elena said to the windshield, "There's more I haven't shown you." And I said, "Tonight?" And she said, "Tomorrow. You need to sleep once before you hear it." Which I want noted was the single most ominous act of kindness I have ever received. I didn't sleep. You're sensing a theme in my life. Wednesday morning, 8:52 a.m. My phone rang. Corvant HR. A warm voice performing sympathy. Administrative leave. Effective immediately. Pending Friday's review. Paid, of course. Please don't access company systems or premises. Please don't discuss the review with colleagues. We're required to inform you that outside counsel will be present Friday. You may bring representation if you wish. Click. Locked out. Silenced. Officially radioactive. I texted 2 work friends good morning and watched the read receipts appear and no replies come back, and understood that the weekend story had already started setting, 2 days early. And the one person still standing next to me was due inside that building in 90 minutes. Alone, under the eye of a man who read her mail and had started to smell smoke. At 9:40 a.m. she called me from a bakery 2 blocks from the office, voice low and fast. "It's worse, and it's better. Conference room A just got booked Saturday too. Data migration support. IT only. G. Hale sponsor. They're not just firing you Friday, they're cleaning the servers Saturday. And I finally know why the rush, why this week, why 4 years of patience just ran out." She exhaled. "It went up on the internal board this morning, embargoed. Corvant's being acquired, Owen. Halberd Group, due diligence closes Monday. He's got 1 weekend to hand auditors a clean company with a convicted-looking thief attached to every dirty page, and after Monday, TriPoint never existed. Friday, 9 a.m., I go on the plank. Saturday, the evidence dies. Monday, the money launders itself into a merger, and Gordon Hale becomes untouchable forever. Tonight, Elena said, my apartment, 8 o'clock, bring nothing electronic. It's time you saw what I actually built. One more thing happened Wednesday, and I need you to have it, because it's the moment I understood exactly what species of man we were up against. At 4:15 p.m. my personal cell rang, a number I didn't have saved, because why would Gordon Hale ever have needed my personal cell? And there was his voice, warm, unhurried, calling me, the man on leave, the man he was feeding to a fraud in 40 hours. Owen, terrible business all this. Listen, between us, off the record, I've been going to bat for you upstairs. A pause, perfectly weighted. Counsel's confident about Friday, and confident is bad for you, son. But I got them to leave one door open. You resign tonight. Clean letter, personal reasons, effective immediately. And Friday quietly goes away. No referral, no story, decent reference from me personally. You're young. You land somewhere. Then the temperature dropped 1 degree, just 1. Door closes at 9 a.m. tomorrow. After that, it's out of my hands. And Owen, you do not want to see whose hands it's in. A confession, an alibi, and a threat, braided into one phone call and offered as a favor. He wasn't giving me mercy. He was buying a resignation letter, a signed, voluntary exit that would read, forever, like a thief who ran. Marcus never got that call, I realized. Marcus fought, and Marcus taught him that a fighter is expensive, and I was being offered the discount. Can I think about it? I said, and made my voice small, and let him hear the fear, because the fear was real, and might as well be useful. Of course, said Gordon Hale, magnanimous, already savoring it. Sleep on it. I did not resign. I did not sleep. I went to Elena's at 8 and told her about the call, and she listened with her eyes closed like a musician checking tuning, and then said the most Elena sentence ever spoken. Good. He's spending effort on exits. That means he hasn't checked the walls. Elena Marsh's apartment looked exactly like her cubicle, spare, precise, nothing on the walls, except for the second bedroom, which she unlocked with an actual key, and which held the other 3 years of her life, a drafting table, accordion folders in labeled rows, a wall, An entire wall of the kind of thing you see in detective shows and assume is set dressing. Printed wires, invoice copies, a corporate org chart with red lines running through it like arteries. 4.5 years of tri-point mapped payment by payment in a hand I recognized from 100 meeting room whiteboards. In the corner, a fireproof document safe, older than her, the dial worn silver. You built the case against me at the office, I said slowly, turning in the middle of it. And you built this here. Every file he ordered me to forge a narrative around, I copied the original first. Every original I traced backward. Hard copies only, purchased with cash, notarized where I could. I've had the same notary for 2 years. She thinks I'm writing a novel. Elena stood in the doorway of her own war room like she wasn't sure she was allowed in. 2.3 million across 91 payments. Every one mapped to a forged approval. Every forgery mapped to a day you, or Marcus before you, verifiably couldn't have signed it. That was the hard part. Alibis for signatures. You want to hear my favorite? She pulled a page. March 11th, last year, you approved a $40,000 tri-point invoice at 2:14 p.m. from a terminal on the 4th floor. She handed it to me with the ghost of the courtroom in her voice. At 2:14 p.m. on March 11th, you were at St. Anthony's Hospital. On your father's bypass. You were gone 9 days, Owen, and Gordon Hale's forger signed your name 3 times while your badge sat in a hospital parking lot. Because he wasn't careful anymore. He hadn't needed to be careful in years. Nobody checks the alibi of a signature. I held the page. My dad's surgery. The worst week of that year, and it had been quietly minting my innocence the entire time. Elena, what's in the safe? She knelt and spun the dial, and what she took out was small. A single micro-recorder, evidence-bagged, and a typed transcript. 14 months ago, she said, Hale called me in to discuss refreshing your file. I'd started carrying this every time I walked into his office. One-party consent state, I checked the statute before I checked my conscience. She set it on the drafting table between us like it was hot. It's 9 minutes. He names tri-point. He names you, he says. She opened the transcript and read it flat. No performance, which made it worse. Calloway signs whatever we need him to sign. That's what he's for. If it ever comes apart, it comes apart on him, same as Webb. You just keep him angry and busy, that's your whole job, and there's a VP title in it the day this closes. 9 minutes of Gordon Hale's own voice, putting his own name inside his own machine. She'd been sitting on a loaded gun for 14 months. Why didn't you use it, I asked. 14 months, Elena. The SEC, the FBI, anyone. Because 14 months ago it was his word and one recording against the general counsel, the IT department, and a story where I'm the disgruntled employee who illegally taped her boss. And you'd still have been radioactive, and Marcus would still be ruined, and I'd have spent the case's one bullet on a wound. Her voice didn't rise. It never rises. 3 years of war taught me that her quiet is the loud part. It needed the wall. All of it. Self-proving. So the recording is the confession on top of the evidence instead of it. It needed 1 more year of payments. And then last month it needed... She stopped. Needed what? She was quiet long enough that I heard her neighbor's television through the wall. Chicago, she said finally. 2 years ago, Halberd, the same Halberd buying us Monday, offered me a directorship in Chicago. Real money. Out from under him? I had the offer letter in my bag for 11 days. She looked at the wall. 91 payments, 3 years of manufactured hatred, and then at me, and finished the accounting. I couldn't figure out how to take it and keep you unassigned to that account. So I turned it down and told the office it fell through, and I called you a rounding error in the Meridian Retro the next morning so nobody, including you, would ever wonder what I was staying for. The apartment was very quiet. 91 payments on the wall, and the 92nd thing she'd paid, standing in front of me pretending it was a line item. 3 years, I said. My voice wasn't steady and I didn't try to fix it. I hated you, Elena. I rehearsed it. I was good at it. I know. I graded it. 1 corner of her mouth, barely. You want the sick part? Some days your hating me was the only proof the plan was working. 3 years of losing to you, she said, was the best work I ever did. And then, before either of us could fall into the thing opening up in the middle of that room, because she is who she is, she turned to the drafting table and said, "Grieve later. We have 36 hours, and here's the plan." And God help me, that was the exact moment I stopped pretending to myself that I wasn't in love with her. The plan, on paper, in her block handwriting, was 4 lines. Thursday 9 a.m. Full copies to Employment Council. Privileged. Fireproof. Thursday 2 p.m. SEC whistleblower submission. Time-stamped. Receipt in hand. The case exists outside Corvant forever. Before Friday, no matter what happens in that room. Thursday 5 p.m. Package to Halberd's Due Diligence Counsel. A buyer discovering fraud has subpoena power, motive, and no loyalty to Gordon Hale. Friday 9 a.m. We attend the meeting. We attend it? I said. You want us to walk the plank on schedule? I want him standing in a room he booked, Elena said, with witnesses he invited, presenting a forged case he built, on the record, while the SEC receipt is already sitting in my bag with a Thursday timestamp. Owen, the meeting is the one place he has to say it all out loud in front of counsel. He built the perfect trap. She capped her pen. He just never checked who was in it. Thursday happened the way heists happen in montage and life happens in cold sweat. The employment attorney who read for 20 minutes said, "Cancel my afternoon," and stopped charging us. The SEC submission uploaded from her office at 1:57 p.m., confirmation number printed twice, one copy in Elena's bag and one in the attorney's safe. The courier to Halbert's counsel signed for at 4:44 p.m. At 9:20 that night, Elena's phone rang. "Hale, cordial as a knife. Big day tomorrow. You'll be there at 9? I'll need you to walk everyone through the file. Your file. You've earned that." He wanted her to present it. He wanted his cage builder to shove the plank herself, in front of counsel, as loyalty insurance. "I'll be there," Elena said, cup rotating a quarter turn against her kitchen counter. "I wouldn't miss it." Conference Room A. Friday, 8:58 a.m. I'd been walked up from the lobby by a security escort, like a man already convicted, which, I understood now, was the point. The perp walk is part of the product. Inside, Gordon Hale at the head of the table in his closing a deal suit, a partner from outside counsel with a leather folio, the head of HR arranging tissues she expected me to need, and, at Hale's right hand, in gray, expression set to the exact professional contempt she'd aimed at me across 3 years of conference tables, Elena Marsh, with the file in front of her. "Owen," Hale said, warm as a heat lamp, "sit, this will be hard and I want you to know we're going to handle it with as much dignity as the facts allow." I sat. I said nothing. My attorney, whom I had not announced and who was at that moment reading email in her car in the visitor lot per the plan, would have been proud. For 19 minutes they built the plank in front of me. Counsel walked through the tri-point scheme with genuine, unknowing gravity. The man had been handed a forged case and was presenting it in good faith, which Elena had counted on. The more thoroughly they present it, the more thoroughly it's on the record. 91 payments. 2.3 million, and then Hale nodded at Elena. The flourish, the loyalty test, the plank shove. Ms. Marsh conducted the internal review. "Elena, walk us through the signature evidence." Elena Marsh opened the folder, squared the pages, looked at me with 3 years of manufactured hatred, for the last time, and let it fall off her face like a coat. "Happily," she said, "the signature evidence is forged, I can prove who forged it, and as of yesterday at 1:57 p.m., so can the Securities and Exchange Commission. I have seen silence before. I had never heard one until that room. She didn't rush. She'd waited 3 years. She wasn't going to hurry the good part." Page by page, she rebuilt it in front of counsel exactly as she'd rebuilt it for me. Tri-Point's registration to the Lake House address, the brother-in-law, 91 payments, Marcus Webb's forgeries and mine, same hand, same hitch. And then the alibis, my father's hospital, the badge in the parking lot. Nobody checks the alibi of a signature, so I checked all 91. She slid the SEC confirmation across the table to counsel, who read it and went the color of the tissues. She slid the Halberd courier receipt after it. The buyer's diligence team received the full package last night, so Saturday's data migration is now a federal question. And finally, she set the recorder on the table, small and black in the middle of all that mahogany. 14 months ago, Mr. Hale described the scheme to me in his own office, in his own voice, and named this man, she looked at me, as, quote, "what he's for." She pressed play. 9 minutes. Nobody moved. I watched Gordon Hale listen to himself, and I will tell you what I told the investigators. He never raged, never sweated, never gave the movies their moment. He recalculated. You could watch it behind his eyes, door after door after door, each one closing on a timestamp, the SEC receipt predating the meeting, the buyer already reading, the recording lawful, the wall self-proving, until, somewhere around minute 6 of his own voice, he arrived at the last door and looked across the table at Elena and said, quietly, the only true thing I ever heard him say, Chicago. I signed off on that offer. You'd have been out. I know, Elena said. You should have wondered why I stayed. Counsel asked Hale not to leave the building. Hale left the building anyway and made it as far as the lobby, where 2 people from Halberd's diligence team and 1 from the U.S. Attorney's Office were already having a wonderful conversation with the General Counsel. The acquisition paused Monday. It closed 4 months later, price adjusted, with a new SVP of Operations and a compliance department that now reports, you'll like this, to a certain director who finally took a version of that Chicago title without leaving town. Marcus Webb's settlement bought back his house. The all-staff email correcting his record ran 8 paragraphs and was, by his request, sent on a Friday at 9 a.m. TriPoint's assets froze. Gordon Hale's trial is scheduled for spring, and his attorney's filings keep using the phrase rogue employee, which is technically correct. They've just perpetually got the wrong employee. And me? I got my back pay, my name, and a strange new problem. How do you talk to a person once the war is over, when the war was the only language you spoke? Here's how. 3 weeks later, the office threw a party that was officially about the acquisition and unofficially about Elena, and at the end of it, I watched her collect her coat and head for the exit. And I got there first, stood in front of the door, put my arm across the frame, and the whole room went quiet because everyone at Corvent knew our history and nobody yet knew our story. I lied, I said. She stopped, looked at my arm, then my face, 3 years of intelligence work behind her eyes, and I watched her get there, because she always gets there first. Did you? She said softly. For 3 years I told everyone I hated you. The room could hear me. I raised my voice so it could hear me better. I lied. I don't hate you. I never learned how. I sat in that diner watching you take apart 3 years of my life and put it back together in your own handwriting, and all I could think was, nobody has ever fought for me the way this woman fought against me. Her cup hand twitched, a quarter turn on nothing. You spent 3 years making me lose so I'd get to keep everything else. So here's my counteroffer, Marsh. Dinner, tomorrow, no files. The silence held 1 beat, 2, and then Elena Marsh, the coldest operator in the building, the woman who kept a war going for 3 years to keep one man off a plank he never saw, stepped in so close that only I could hear it, and blocked my exit right back, and whispered the last reveal of this whole story. Owen. What do you think the diner was? She still turns her cup a quarter turn when she's about to win something. I still lose to her constantly. It's the best work I ever do. Before you go, 2 questions, and I want the truth in the comments, because if this story taught me anything, it's that the truth needs witnesses with receipts. First, if the coworker who'd made your life hell for years blocked the door one night and whispered, I lied, I've been protecting you, would you have gotten in the car? Or would you have walked out and gone straight to the one person you shouldn't? Tell me honestly what you'd have done at 6:47 p.m. And second, the real one. Has there ever been someone in your life you misread completely? Someone whose distance or coldness or hate turned out to be them protecting you, carrying something for you, paying for you in a currency you couldn't see? A coworker, a parent, a friend who kept you at arm's length for reasons you only learned later? Who was it? And did you ever find out in time to thank them? Put their story in the comments. Someone scrolling down there tonight is being protected by a person they think is their enemy, and your story might be the thing that makes them look twice. If this one kept you at the edge of your seat, subscribe, because next week I'm telling you about the anniversary gift my husband gave me with a receipt inside from a store in a city he swears he's never visited, dated the weekend he was supposedly at his mother's funeral.